Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Navigation. Pick up the Phantom Beast fruit at the beginning. Chapter 41. After parting ways with Luffy, Air and his party recrossed the Calm Belt and returned to the Grand Line. During the few days of sailing in the Calm Belt, the unfortunate rat was surprised that no Sea Kings came to eat it. Air even wondered if the Sea Kings thought this guy was disgusting and had no desire to eat it. So he simply found a reason to shoot this disgusting thing and threw it into the sea. Then he reported the matter to Marshal Sengoku with the excuse of being acclimatized. Fortunately, it was just a piece of garbage that died. Sengoku didn't pursue the matter and just warned him to pay attention next time. Air naturally agreed. After sailing for so long, Air has gained nothing except catching a few pieces of garbage with a bounty of 1 or 2 million in the East Blue. Just when he was bored and started playing landlords with Vivi and Nasha, a communications soldier hurried over with a phone bug. Lieutenant Colonel Air, there's an emergency call. Upon hearing this, Air quickly threw away the tattered cards in his hand, stood up and took the phone bug. Moses, this is Marine Lieutenant Colonel Air, may I ask what happened over there? On the other side of the conversation, on a warship that was under fire, a man was hiding in the corner and waiting anxiously. Are you connected? Great. Our army is under attack. The opponent is the great pirate, White Bear, quests with a bounty of 120 million. We can't hold on any longer. Please support us as soon as possible. The location is ********. 102 million. Single quote. I understand. Hold on. Support will be coming soon. After speaking, Air hung up the phone and ordered the soldiers to rush to the fighting site with all their strength. On the other side, after hanging up the phone, the man quickly ran onto the deck and reported to a young female officer who was directing the battle. Major Hina, we got in touch. The other party said they would come immediately for support. Hina, Air's senior sister, was holding a cigarette in her mouth and looking solemnly at the huge pirate ship heading towards her not far away. She couldn't help but feel slightly relieved when she heard that there was support. You're lucky. Hina is curious, who came to support? An ordinary school officer can't stop a big pirate with a reward of more than 100 million. The man was stunned, thinking of Air's self-report just now, and said without confidence. Well, I just remember it was a lieutenant colonel from the headquarters, Major Hina, what should we do? Hina gritted her teeth and threw the cigarette into the sea. There is nothing you can do. You continue to contact support. I will find a way to hold them back first. The man saluted and ran back to continue calling for help. On a pirate ship dozens of meters away, a pirate observed the warship in front of him with a telescope. As his eyes swept across, Hina's young and beautiful figure caught his eye. Captain, I found a super pretty girl. Following his words, a 3-meter-tall, hairy, gorilla, came over. Case took the telescope handed over by his younger brother and looked in the direction he pointed. Sure enough, the younger brother didn't lie to him. A beautiful officer wearing a burgundy suit with an open chest, revealing her white snow, was commanding the warship heroically. The first time Quest saw her, he was firmly attracted by her beauty. Boys, stop the bombardment. Lousy wants to capture this beauty alive and enjoy it. Hearing his words, the pirates cheered like ghosts howling like wolves. The shelling stopped, quickly sailed towards the warship. This change of the other party was also noticed by Hina. Although she didn't know what the other party was planning to do, she knew she couldn't let them get close, otherwise everything would be over. Black Gun. Hina is a cage fruit user who can create barriers from anywhere on her body to lock her opponents in. At the same time, it can also create iron guns to sink the opponent's ships. The hardness of its iron guns exceeds that of steel. A 3-meter-long spear condensed in her hand and she threw it towards the opposite side. Kaze looked at the spear that was fired at him and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. This girl still has some skills. Let's leave it to you, Lebby. It's up to me, Captain. A thin man who looked ordinary, grabbed an iron rod, jumped up from the boat, and knocked away the incoming spear with a casual blow. Lebby turned over and fell back to the deck elegantly. The younger brothers looked at his handsome skills and immediately cheered in admiration. As expected of the deputy captain. Still so dashing. Oh, as expected of a man with a bounty of 80 million, he is so handsome. Sir Lebby is so handsome. During the conversation, a strong man shyly bumped into Lebby's arms. Honey, you are amazing. Holding him, Lebby smiled excitedly. Baby, I will reward you when the battle is over. Go back to the room and wait for me. After saying that, he reached out and patted his butt. The strong man covered his face shyly, stamped his feet in embarrassment, and ran back to the cabin. If Air were here, he would cover his eyes in pain and ask God why he allowed himself to see such a disgusting scene. But the pirates on the ship were used to it, and they all started making fun of him. Some people even looked at the cabin with jealous eyes. Lebby, it's still the old rules. Beautiful women belong to me, and strong men belong to you. Kays licked his lips and said excitedly. Lebby looked at him with admiration and said shyly, Captain, you know, people like you the most. ... Kays wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, laughed twice, and casually brushed it off. Really, the captain is so ruthless, but it is your order, so I will definitely complete it. Hey, you are as reassuring as ever. Kids, let's make a scene. Ooh, bang, the pirate ship slammed into the warship. The pirates waved their long swords, jumped on the warship, and fought with the Marines. Shoot, don't let them get close. Scumbags, don't underestimate Marines' justice. Brothers, fight them. Even though there was an obvious numerical disadvantage compared to the pirates, the sailors still blocked them regardless of their own safety. Although the situation seems to be stable, Hina knows that the other party's cadres are still waiting and watching. If they wait for them to take action, the current situation will collapse in an instant. No, we can't just watch. Single quote. With her thoughts spinning, Hina turned her hands into fences and threw them towards the pirates. The moment the fence touched them, it turned into an iron ring, binding everyone tightly. Chow Yu threshold. What is this thing? I can't get rid of it at all. It was that female Marine who did it. She is demon fruit power. Asshole, let Lousy go. The pirates were tied up and unable to move, and could only scream crazily. Marine on the side saw this and quickly waved his weapon to hit the enemies one by one. Oh, Major Hina is taking action. Brothers, charge. The Marines seemed to have been given a shot in the arm and fought harder against the enemy. Hina also rushed into the battle group and killed a large number of pirates with one move. Oh, I'm not bad at it. Captain, it's time for us sisters to take action. Kays looked at Hina's figure and drooled greedily. Kaido said, well, go ahead and bring that girl back intact. Hee, sister, come on. Okay, sister. The two held hands, jumped on the warship, and rushed towards Hina. Lady Duo. Hina sensed something was wrong, but it was too late to hide now. The two of them kicked Hina hard in the abdomen and kicked her away along with several soldiers behind her. It didn't stop until it broke the mast on the warship. Cough, cough. Hina spat out blood foam and looked at the person solemnly. The two wore the same pink dress and short skirts, with black heels and black stockings wrapped around their thickly hairy thighs. Blush is applied to the masculine face. Lipstick was smeared on the thick sausage mouth. The two of them held hands and struck a seductive pose, looking very disgusting. Sisters appear. Asterisk 2. Seeing the two of them, a certain sailor couldn't help shouting in horror. Ah! It's the she-male sisters, Cohen and Cork, who each have a bounty of 40 million. The two of them cast their gaze over, and, sister, Cohen pulled out a knife, flicked it, and threw it at him. The Marine soldier screamed, covering his heart with a flying knife inserted into it, and fell down. The two of you are real women. It's really rude to call me a she-male. That's right, since you have offended me, let us go to hell to make amends. The she-male sisters covered their mouths and laughed at the dead sailor. Asshole, Chow Yuxian. Hina looked at the dead sailors and attacked the two men angrily. However, the two sisters jumped to avoid the iron bars that were sweeping towards them. It's not over yet. Black spear formation. Hina aimed her hands at the two of them, and two iron spears grew out of her palms and shot at them. Cohen stood in front of his sister, and waved two short swords to knock away the iron guns. After he landed, sharp knives suddenly appeared from the toes of his feet. He stood on one foot, and with the two knives in his hands, he spun like a top, and rushed towards Hina. Lady Ballet. Seeing that she couldn't resist, Hina used Shao and jumped to the right. Don't forget that I still have a concubine. Kirk came to her side at some point, took out a mace that came out of nowhere and smashed her towards Cohen. At the critical moment, Hina created an iron rod in front of her and barely blocked the opponent's attack, but she still had a few more wounds on her body. No, although the bounty for these two people is not high, but when they work together, I can't defeat them with my strength. Single quote. Hina covered her injured arm and fell into a passive state. At this time, she felt a little regretful. She regretted that she did not listen to teacher Zephyr's words and strengthen physical training, but relied too much on the fruit. Before she could take a few breaths, the two sisters struck her again with a storm of attacks. Sister, Cohen is good at knife skills, while, sister, Coke is better at stick skills. The two of them, one on the left and the other on the right, cooperated tacitly, forcing Hina to move around and try her best to parry. Based on the current situation, although Hina can still hold on for a while, anyone with a discerning eye can see that the final victory will definitely belong to the Shemale sisters. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly came from the distance. Both sides of the war stopped their attacks in unison and looked in the direction of the sound. 10 minutes ago, Air looked at the sea with a telescope. Blue blue brew. Blue blue brew. It seems that the other party's situation is not good, the call for help has not been disconnected. Air looked at the phone bug that kept calling and said in an irritated tone. Nasha also looked worried and looked around eagerly. Suddenly, a small dot appeared in the telescope. Nasha took a closer look and saw the familiar marine warship. She hurriedly called Air, pointed in that direction and said, Air, look, there are warships fighting the enemy over there. Air quickly picked up the telescope and looked over there. Unfortunately, the distance was too far. He could only see two ships entangled together. He didn't know what the specific situation was. Seeing this, Air didn't care about anything else and ordered Nasha and the others to continue on their way. He stepped on moonwalk to high altitude, activated his fruit power and turned into a red dragon. He roared, flapped his broad wings and rushed towards that direction. The people who stayed on the warship opened their mouths and widened their eyes as they watched the dragon leave in surprise. Today's scene is probably something they will never forget for the rest of their lives. Air was flying in the sky. When he was about a kilometer away, his ultra-distant vision allowed him to immediately lock onto the familiar figure on the warship. The level of visibility enhanced to a level also covered the opponent, and every move on the warship was reflected in his mind. Sensing Hina's current situation, Air couldn't help but speed up. At the same time, a loud dragon roar accompanied Conquerors who swept through everything, crushing the entire audience and announcing his arrival. Through his deliberate control, Conquerors only targets pirates. The powerful momentum swept across, and most of the pirates lost consciousness and fell to the ground in a faint. Only Iron Rod Leby, the Shemale sisters and a few small cadres knelt on the ground and maintained their consciousness. Captain Quest shed a drop of cold sweat, the pupils in his eyes dilated, and he screamed, it turned out to be Conquerors. And it looks like this. Where did this monster come from? Having been in Grand Line for several years, he is not an unfamiliar newcomer. When this domineering aura swept across, he recognized it immediately. Compared to Quest's fear, Hina couldn't help but relax after seeing the giant dragon in the sky. After tying up the trembling Shemale sister beside her with her abilities, she sat down on the ground and smiled as if she had survived the disaster. Hey, Major Hina, long time no see. How are you happy to see me? The 40-meter-long giant dragon greeted Hina with a playful tone. Hina lit the cigarette, took a puff, and said with a smile, long time no see, Air. Hina feels relieved to see you. Ha ha ha. It seems that I, the hero, came to save the beauty at the right time. After saying that, Air turned his attention to Kaze and the others, with a cold light shining in his lantern-sized dragon eyes. White Cat Quest, right. You dare to hurt my beautiful senior sister, have you thought about how to die? Kaze swallowed, although he wanted to refute that he was a white bear, not a white cat. But after comparing the body shapes of the two sides, he still explained in a nonchalant manner. This, Mr. Marine, this is just an accident. Is there any misunderstanding between us? Kaze stammered nonsense that even he didn't believe, and kept praying to the gods for blessing. Perhaps because the gods of this world are those stupid pigs from the celestial dragons, his prayers went unanswered. Air opened his mouth, revealing a pair of sharp fangs, and his smile was very ferocious and terrifying. He was too lazy to talk nonsense, and blasted the pirate ship with the roar of a fire dragon. The entire ship was directly engulfed in fire, turned into a huge fireball, and gradually sank in the sea. At the last moment, Quest jumped onto the warship with Lebby and escaped. He looked at the giant dragon in the sky in horror, and exclaimed with tears streaming down his face, "Monster! You are a monster! How can humans have such power?" Lebby on the side was even more unbearable. At this time, he sat down on the ground, and his pants were already wet. Air transformed into a human animal form and landed on the deck. Looking at Lebby, who was so frightened that he wet his pants, he glared at him with contempt. Seeing that he didn't respond, he turned his attention back to Kaze. Kaze looked at Air's human animal form and compressed it through the return of life. He was only more than 3 meters tall. For some reason, the fear in his heart lessened a lot. He mustered up his courage, activated his fruit power, and turned into a 6-meter-tall white bear and roared. "Old, lousy as the white bear Kaze with a bounty of 102 million, marine fool, go to hell." Air picked his ears and dodged the bear claws swung by Kaze. Clenching his right paw, Kai taunted, "Little cutie, let's have a taste of my fist. The iron fist of the fire dragon." As he spoke, flames formed on his hands, wrapping armament hockey at the same time. He exerted force with his legs, leaving 2 craters on the spot, then quickly came to Quest and punched him hard in the face. His cheek was smashed out of shape, and his 6-meter-long body flew directly into the sea and slowly sank. In order to prevent him from jumping out and committing suicide in the future, Air also flew high into the sky and landed dozens of tempest kicks. After his heartbeat completely stopped under the sensation of seeing and hearing, Air stopped attacking and returned to the ship. Wiping the non-existent sweat on his head, Air bypassed Lebby and the Shemale sisters who were pretending to be dead, came to Hina, stretched out his hand and joked. "Major Hina, I haven't seen you in a few years. Can't you even beat 2 perverts who are neither male nor female?" Grabbing Air's hand and standing up, Hina made a disdainful sound and said angrily, "You're too arrogant, kid." Hina is very unhappy. Air grinned, and ordered to the sailors who had not recovered yet, "I am Lieutenant Colonel Air. Why are you still standing there? Why don't you quickly treat the wounded and throw all these garbage pirates into the sea?" The sailors were shocked and immediately followed Air's instructions. Hina frowned and said, "Leave these 3 with bounties on their heads. Their heads can still be claimed by the headquarters. It would be a pity to throw them away." Air raised his eyebrows and resisted. "The man can stay, but forget about these 2 who are neither men nor women. I feel sick when I look at them." "Really, it turns out that Air you like this type." Hina misjudged you. Hina looked at him with a look of garbage, which made Air feel uncomfortable. "You, what do you mean? Haha, I won't tell you." After saying that, she turned around and left to find a doctor for treatment. Air was left standing there, confused and thinking about the meaning of her words. A sailor was still struggling for a while, then he came over and whispered something in his ear. "Nani, he's gay." Without saying a word, Air came to the trapped Lebby with his razor and kicked him into the sea. The sailors were surprised and wanted to reach out to stop him, but unfortunately it was too late. Lebby spit out blood in the air and fell into the sea unwillingly. He secretly swore in his heart that he would never be gay again in his next life. He picked up a piece of cloth and wiped it on his shoes. Thinking that the shoes had just come into close contact with a gay man, Air had the urge to throw them away. Fortunately, at this time, Nasha and her men arrived in a warship, interrupting Air's thoughts. After instructing Nasha to direct the soldiers to help treat the wounded, Air walked into the cabin and found Hina in the infirmary. As soon as he opened the door, Air saw a female doctor dressing Hina's wound. Hina took off her shirt, wearing only her underwear, and sat on a chair smoking silently. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the 2 of them turned their heads at the same time and met Air's eyes. The scene was a little awkward for a moment. Bang! After closing the door, Air pretended not to see anything, turned around and left. "Come in." Hina's intellectual voice came from inside. Since she invited him, Air did not hesitate, opened the door and walked in openly. He sat down opposite her, stared at her chest intently, and said, Major Hina, your warship cannot sail for the time being, so why not get on my ship? I will take you to Alabasta to rest for a while, and then you can return to the G-34 branch. Feeling his burning gaze, Hina casually picked up a roll of bandages and threw it at his face, warning, "Kid, where are your eyes?" After saying that, her tone changed and she continued, "In that case, let me follow your arrangements first." Throwing the bandage away, Air didn't hear what she said at all. He just nodded blankly and continued to appreciate the beautiful scenery in front of him. Hina grabbed bottles and jars and threw them at Air crazily. "If you find out, get out of here." Air dodged around and ran out in a panic, not forgetting to close the door. HMPH, little pervert. Hina snorted coldly and motioned for the doctor to continue. The female doctor lowered her head and did not dare to look into her eyes. Thinking about how the two of them looked just now, countless scenes flashed through her mind, and she had even imagined the scene in which they would get married and have children in the future. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but giggle. Hina looked at her and coughed slightly, which frightened the female doctor and quickly bandaged her up. When Hina got dressed, put on her cloak again, and came out of the infirmary. The sailors had packed up the deck and boarded Air's warship. The two boats are also connected with ropes at the bow, and they are ready to go at any time. She jumped directly onto Air's warship with the doctor. When she arrived at the bow, Air had already set the table, poured red wine and was waiting for her. Stepping forward and sitting down, Hina crossed her legs, took a sip of red wine and said, "You really know how to enjoy it." Hina is very envious. Instructing Nasha to set sail, Air smiled and said, "They were all captured from pirates. You can take some of them away if you like." "You're welcome, Major Hina." Hina raised her eyebrows, put down her wine glass, and said displeased, "Since we first met, you have been called a major. What, are you proud of becoming a lieutenant colonel?" Air looked aggrieved and said as if he had been wronged, "How could it be? This is just a normal title. You think too much, Major Hina." After saying that, he added, "Oh, no, counting this time, plus the heavy boxer Fedeli whom I captured with a bounty of 88 million, maybe it won't be long before you call me Colonel Air." Seeing his triumphant look, Hina felt unhappy and couldn't help but make some sarcastic remarks. Air didn't tolerate her either, so she also choked back. Just like that, the two started arguing as if no one was watching. In the room, Vivi looked at Hina chatting and laughing with Air through the window, biting her handkerchief jealously. "I'm just a little taller and my chest is a little bigger. When I grow up, I will definitely surpass her." Single quote. The subsequent voyage went smoothly, and Air and his party returned to Alabasta smoothly, landing at a port deep in the Sundola River, close to the capital Albana. This is a small port newly built in recent months, mainly for marine garrison. A decent base has also been built next to the port, probably for soldiers to rest and train. As soon as we got off the boat, we were greeted warmly by an old man who looked like he was in charge. "Mr. Lieutenant Colonel, the marine camp His Majesty the King ordered us to build has been basically completed. You are here just in time. I will take you to visit it." Air was slightly interested, nodded and followed him into the camp. After a general visit, Air was very satisfied. Although this base is small, it is well equipped. Training grounds, dormitories, canteens, storage rooms, weapons depots, etc. are all available. Air encouraged the person in charge, and after leaving the soldiers to familiarize themselves with the new environment, he took Vivi and Hina to the palace. Hina was a little resistant at first. She also felt that it was not appropriate to enter and exit a country's palace at will without prior notification. Who knows, after a few people arrived at the palace, the passing king's troops would respectfully salute them. After meeting King Cobra, what happened next surprised her even more. Air ignored etiquette at all, kicked open the study door, and walked in swaggeringly. "Yo, uncle, I'm back." "Oh, you are back, what a ghost. Do you think I would say that? Idiot." Cobra was full of anger, grabbed a thick book and threw it at Air. "You fool, can't you knock on the door properly?" He caught the thrown book and started reading it. As he looked at it, Air made a strange sound. As expected of a king, the books he reads are so unique. Cobra appeared in front of Air in an instant and snatched the book away. Hina was so fast that she didn't even react. She glanced at the title of the book curiously. The cover of Things I Had to Say with My Noble Lady still showed a beautiful mature young woman. Cobra hid the book in his arms and coughed twice. When he noticed Vivi holding Air, he immediately turned into a loving old father, rushed up to her, rubbed her little face, and told her how he had missed her for so many days. Vivi-chan, Dad misses you so much, how are you doing? Are you hurt? Air didn't bully you, right? Vivi pushed her old father away in disgust, put her hands on her hips and said angrily, Dad, I'm not a child anymore, and didn't you see there are guests? It's so rude. Really, Vivi doesn't need me anymore. Cobra covered his heart as if he had been hit by an arrow, hugging his legs in despair and drawing circles with his back to the crowd. Air couldn't stand it anymore looking at him looking so arrogant. He pulled Hina aside who had not yet understood the situation, interrupted Cobra's thoughts, and introduced to him. Uncle, this is Hina, my senior at Marine School. She is going to take some rest in Alabasta recently. After saying that, he ignored Cobra and introduced to Hina. This is His Majesty Cobra, the king of this country. Well, a serious daughter-in-law. Hina bowed to Cobra seriously and introduced herself formally. Cobra also came out of his disappointment, looked at Hina seriously, and then looked at Air with murderous eyes. He stepped forward quickly, pulled Air to the corner, hooked his neck and asked fiercely. Boy, this can't be your lover in Marine. Boy, if you dare to do anything that's sorry for Vivi, I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost. Air looked at him like he was an idiot. Idiot, if we are really lovers, I will bring him to you. Cobra rubbed his chin with his right hand and thought for a while, and felt the same. Then he reacted again, pinched Air's neck, and roared angrily. You kid really had such thoughts. Air, whose neck was strangled, stuck out his tongue and raised his hands to apologize. Yes, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Shaking this hateful brat aside, Cobra sighed helplessly. Forget it, this is between you and Vivi, as long as you don't treat Vivi badly. Air's ears perked up and she looked at him in disbelief. After he came to his senses, he quickly rubbed his hands in flattery and said, as expected of His Majesty the King, you are so magnanimous. She rolled her eyes at him angrily, and Cobra felt jealous to the point of separation. Why doesn't a handsome guy like me have such good luck? I'm so envious. The two murmured for a while, and then Cobra came back proudly, while Air was like a flattering traitor, saying a series of good words behind him. Okay, you all go and have a good rest. You must be exhausted after such a long voyage. Air greeted the two girls with a smile and planned to leave. At this time, Cobra stopped him again, picked up a newspaper from the table and handed it to him. He didn't pay attention, took the newspaper and said with a smile, Then, Your Majesty the King, let's go down and rest first. After saying that, he waved his hand and closed the door. After arranging Hina's room, Air returned to the bedroom to coax Vivi to sleep. At this time, he lay on the bed and had time to read the newspaper. As soon as he saw the title, Air sat up from the bed in surprise. Hero, 7 Warlords of the Sea Crocodile. Air has been a little irritable since reading the report last night. If he has watched the anime, he knows that Crocodile is not an upright hero like what the news says. He catches pirates in order to protect the people. This is all bullshit. His main purpose is to implement the Utopia plan, usurp the throne of Alabasta, and find the legendary ancient weapon, Pluton, who can destroy an island with one blow. To this end, he captured pirates and established a positive image of himself in the hearts of the people. At the same time, dancing powder was secretly used to prevent it from raining in the country except the capital Albana for 3 years. Inducing the masses, they put the blame for the lack of rain on the head of King Cobra, thus triggering a civil war that made the people of the country miserable and suffered heavy casualties. When Air traveled through time and found out he was in Alabasta, he regarded Crocodile as an imaginary enemy. He joined Marine and trained hard, and he also wanted to defeat Crocodile when he faced him one day in the future. But what he didn't expect was that this guy would come to Alabasta so early and start building a good reputation for himself. I'm actually here, so I'll let you see the results of my years of practice. System points. Single quote. Ding. Nefertari D. Air. Gender. Male. Age. 13. Height. 173. Personal abilities. Physique A, 17,762 30,000ths, Swordsmanship A, 912 30,000ths, Physical Skills A, 1,202 30,000ths. Hockey. Armament Hockey A 214 30,000ths, Observation Hockey A 229 30,000ths, Conquerors Hockey B 1982 10,000ths. Skill moves. Shave B 9082 10,000ths, Moonwalk B 8327 10,000ths, Tempest Kick B 8654 10,000ths, Finger Pistol B 7857 10,000ths, Iron Body C 4612 5,000ths, Paper Arts C 4131 5,000ths. Devil Fruit. Dragon Fruit A 10,232 30,000ths. Experience points 31,900. Overall rating A+, stronger than most Vice Admiral. With a few trash from East Blue and White Bear quests and his cadres, Air has more than 30,000 experience. So much experience, let's maximize the fruits and constitution, and upgrade to S first. Single quote. Ding, it is detected that the host's physique has reached S level, and the system will issue additional rewards. Ding, I think host eliminates the side effects of devil fruit, and at the same time can take another additional fruit or take away the ability of one fruit. Puff. Air, who was eating, spit out all the food in his mouth. Without waiting for Vivi sitting next to him to ask, he eagerly called the system. Hey, system, what's happening here? Why didn't you tell me earlier about this kind of reward? Then when my swordsmanship reaches S, will you give me a supremely sharp sword? Single quote. Ding, no, the system will only provide rewards after the host's physical fitness is improved, and each level of physical fitness can add another fruit ability. So, with the Fire Dragon fruit, I can gain a total of 4 abilities. Single quote. Ding, yes, this is not taking off. With the addition of 4 fruits, Lousy is invincible. I need to think about it. Single quote. Vivi looked at Air, who started to giggle while eating, tilted her head in confusion, and waved her hand in front of his eyes. Seeing that he still didn't respond, he simply leaned into his ear and shouted loudly. Air. The quiet soprano scared Air so much that he quit the fantasy. He rubbed his ears and looked at Vivi in confusion. What's wrong? It's so loud all of a sudden. Seeing his confused look, Vivi crossed her arms angrily and said, What are you thinking about? I called you several times and ignored me. Air scratched his head in embarrassment and found an excuse to fool her. After finishing the meal, Air asked Vivi to go out and asked her to talk to Cobra and Hina, and then left without Vivi's reluctance. Stepping on the moonwalk and flying towards Crocodile's location in the newspaper, Air asked the system a question in his mind. System, how should I get the fruit? Can the ability taken away be given to others? Single quote. Ding, after the host kills the ability user, he can plunder the opponent's ability into his own body by touching it. Additionally, the ability to loot is not shareable. Sigh, Air sighed in disappointment. He thought that after killing someone, the system would regenerate a fruit, so that he could use this bug to hunt down the ability users crazily and obtain a lot of devil fruit. What a pity. While chatting with the system, Air arrived in the Rainland, which is also the base camp of Crocodile in the original work. But it's just that Crocodile hasn't opened a casino here yet, and the Rainland is not as prosperous as it will be in the future. Air used observation hockey to sense it, and soon he caught an unusual aura. In a temporary office, an intelligence officer was reporting intelligence to Crocodile. Boss, the target has entered the Grand Line from West Blue. Should we send someone to recruit him? Crocodile, who had a slicked back hair, looked at the information sent by his subordinates. After being silent for a while, he said, I need this woman's ability to recruit her to me at all costs. Yes, the intelligence agent left directly after giving the street order. Crocodile was left smoking a cigar and thinking about his plan. At this time, a young voice suddenly sounded in the quiet office. Nico Robin, are the 7 warlords of the sea interested in her too? Who? Crocodile summoned a sandstorm in his hand and threw it in the direction of the sound. Wherever the sandstorm passed, everything was devoured and shattered. Air dodged, left the range of the sandstorm, and greeted Lao Sha warmly, who was staring at him. Oh, what a passion, Mr. Crocodile. Seeing the person coming, Crocodile remembered the information he had read when he first came here, and immediately recognized him. With a gloomy face, he asked, Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air, I wonder what you want from me. Air wasn't surprised that Crocodile recognized him. After all, he is also a member of the royal family, and he has not hidden the fact that he joined Marine. For a planned and premeditated careerist like Crocodile, it is normal to get to know the important people in Alabasta before taking action. I really didn't expect that my fame would be so famous. Even the legendary 7 warlords of the sea know me. Hearing Air's teasing, Crocodile said impatiently, "Kid, tell me your purpose, otherwise I won't care about Marine's face." Walking to the only sofa in the office and sitting down, Air crossed his legs and asked weirdly. "My purpose? I should be the one to ask you this. Dang Shichibukai, why are you going to Alabasta when you are not staying in the New World? Do you have some ulterior secret?" Crocodile's face became even more gloomy. He took a puff of his cigar and said slowly, "Kid, what I want to do has nothing to do with you. Shichibukai has privileges issued by the world government. Marine has nothing to do with us. Marine can't control it, but as the royal family of Alabasta, I also have the right to ask you. If you are so resistant to answering, you don't really have any bad intentions." Air leaned back on the sofa, looked at him playfully, and continued. "It's also related to Nico Robin, the historian. Let me guess, it's not about Alabasta's secret, the legendary ancient weapon, Pluton." Crocodile's pupils dilated, and the moment Air finished speaking, he couldn't help but turn his right hand into a sand blade and strike hard at Air. Air quickly dodged, stepped on it, and moved towards Crocodile at high speed. Before Air could get closer, Crocodile slapped the ground. The entire floor quickly dried and cracked, turning into sand and gradually spreading around. Seeing that he couldn't stay on the ground, Air crashed through the ceiling and flew out. Crocodile saw this and hurriedly chased after him. The two chased and fled, and soon left the city. 10 minutes later, when Air saw no one around, he turned around and kicked behind him with a Tempest kick. Lao Sha did not dodge and let Tempest kicks fall on him. His body turned into sand after being hit, and then condensed back into its original shape after the slash passed through his body. Oh, elementalization. What a terrifying ability. Lao Sha's face darkened. Air's attitude made him very unhappy. After scanning the surrounding environment, he suddenly smiled sinisterly and said, "Kid, I don't know where you got the information, but it doesn't matter. As long as I catch you and torture out Pluton's information, my plan will be completed. I also want to thank you for saving me so much time." Air raised his eyebrows, his muscles began to swell, dragon scales grew on his body, and he transformed into a human and animal form. "If you can do it, just do it." The roar of the fire dragon. Shalon. The fire pillar and the tornado turned into sand collided and cancelled each other out. Air turned on his wisdom color to the maximum, wrapped his fists in armed color, and rushed towards Lao Sha. The iron fist of the fire dragon. Lao Sha waved his hand and summoned a wall of sand to block the attack, but was broken by Air's punch. "Nani, it actually broke my sand shield." Single quote. Lao Sha looked at Air in surprise as he broke through the sand shield and came towards him, and subconsciously wanted to avoid it by elementalizing himself. But Air was too fast, and a fist wrapped in armor hit him firmly in the face. He flew backwards like a cannonball and fell to the ground in a panic, with his long, stylish hair hanging loosely on the back of his head. "Ahem, you have the Phantom Beast fruit and mastered the weapon color. No wonder you dare to challenge me. But you think I only have this level of skills." Arc-shaped sand dune. A crescent-shaped sand knife slashed at Air, and Air flew into the air subconsciously. But Lao Sha had already planned and flew over his head in advance. "Get down here, heavy Shalon." Air crossed his arms and blocked the blow with his upper body covered in armor. But the body fell into the desert under the strong wind. Lao Sha pressed his hands on the desert and controlled the flow of underground water veins, forming a large area of quicksand that engulfed Air. Desert sunflower. TCH, you really can't underestimate him. Single quote. Air, who was lying at the bottom of the pit, flapped his wings vigorously and broke out of the sand pit. He pulled out the Changdong from his waist, wrapped it with weapons and high-temperature flames, and launched a dozen slashes in succession. Then, regardless of Lao Sha's response, he flew high into the sky, held the sword upright in front of him, rotated his whole body at high speed through his wings, and aimed the sword tip at him and shot it out like a bullet. Lao Sha used the sand blade to scatter the incoming slash, looked at Air who was shot straight at him, and said disdainfully, "This idiotic attack can't hurt me. After saying that, he turned into sand and moved aside to avoid it. Air crashed into the sand as he expected, but just a second before landing, he forcibly stopped his spinning body, stood on the sand with his legs, and drew a circle with Chong-dong sweep. The violent wind generated by the rotational inertia combined with its own high-temperature flames formed a huge fire tornado. The secret of one sword-style firestorm. The high temperature of nearly 2000 degrees scorched the sand, and the sand began to crystallize rapidly. The elemental Lao Sha resisted the blazing flames, and the terrifying temperature gave him the illusion of being melted into glass. Air didn't stop, and when Lao Sha didn't react, he slashed at his neck with the knife. Ding! The fire tornado dissipated, and Lao Sha, who was panting and almost turned into glass, blocked Air's attack with a golden hook. Ho, 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 who do you think Laozi is? Laozi is 7 warlords of the sea, Sir Crocodile. Heavy Shalon. A terrifying sandstorm formed out of thin air, and strong wind blew so hard that Air couldn't open his eyes. Lao Sha took the opportunity to retreat, and turned his hands into sand blades to attack Air. Fortunately, Air was able to dodge quickly due to his strong sense of sight. That's it again. Don't you know that such words are a curse? Lao Sha frowned, not understanding what this kid was talking about. He waved his hand and released the desert diamond sword, and the sand blades cut through the sand and slashed towards Air. Logia is trouble, Air secretly complained in his heart after swiping his sword to disperse Lao Sha's attack. Hey, Crocodile, to show respect, I'm going to use my full strength. Life is returned and solved. The half-dragon-shaped body suddenly grew by a section, reaching 7 meters. Ignoring Lao Sha's increasingly solemn expression, Air returned the knife to its sheath, squatted down, held the handle of the knife with one hand and began to accumulate strength. As soon as he saw this posture, Lao Sha knew what he was going to do, and quickly swung his sand blade to stop him. Watching the attack approaching, Air took his time. His sharp eyes were fixed on Lao Sha, and the moment the sand blade was about to hit, he moved. Shaved, armed color entangled. The secret of Ito-style II dragon flame flash. The two figures passed each other. Air stood behind Lao Sha, maintaining the posture of drawing his sword. Air danced his sword handsomely, put the sword into its sheath, and said with a concave expression, "Your strength has disappeared as the heart of a strong man is broken. It's a pity that I will strike you with all my strength. There is only the end of failure." After thinking he was handsome, Air didn't get a response from Lao Sha. Looking back in confusion, Lao Sha had a terrible wound on his chest that could clearly see his internal organs. He fell to the ground on his back, and he was already taking in more air than out. Air looked confused and quickly ran to him. Looking at Lao Sha who was about to die, he quickly threw Chengdong aside, held his head and shouted excitedly. Hey, Sand Crocodile, cheer up, don't die. I haven't reported to the headquarters yet, how will I explain to the marshal if you die? Air grabbed his body and shook it back and forth. Under his control, Lao Sha slowly opened his eyes and looked at Air who was anxiously begging him not to die. He felt that he had been insulted like never before. You. I must. Before he finished speaking, Lao Sha vomited a large mouthful of blood, closed his eyes, kicked his legs, and passed out. Seeing that something was wrong, Air quickly picked him up and sent him to the rainy place for treatment. After working for several hours, the doctor walked out of the operating room and shook his head helplessly. This is too casual, your sand fruit is not rare. Single quote. Cursing a few words in his mind, Air hesitantly took the phone, gritted his teeth and broadcast the call to the headquarters. Bolu, gaga. Moses, this is Marshal Sengoku. Air held the phone bug and greeted Sengoku awkwardly. Well, Marshal Sengoku, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air. It's you, what do you want from me? Haha, it's nothing. I was out shopping, and then I met Crocodile from 7 warlords of the sea. For some reason, I got into a fight with him, and then he died. There was silence for a while on the other end of the phone, and suddenly Sengoku's roar came. Asshole kid, you know what you did. This is a big pirate recognized by the government, and as a marine, you actually did it privately without the government's permission. You are smearing the government's face, do you know? Looking at the phone bug's exaggerated expression, Air knew without even thinking how angry Sengoku was at this moment. After picking his ears, Air calmly comforted Sengoku. Marshal Sengoku, don't be angry. It's just a Shichibukai. Just choose another one. Asshole. Get back to Marineford, now. Now, Pa Kai. Looking at the hung-up phone, Air put it back in his pocket and sighed. Walking back to the operating room, I looked at Lao Sha lying lifeless on the operating table. Air covered him with a white cloth sympathetically. Crocodile, glorious in life, glorious in death, well, great. May you go to heaven with the blessing of the gods after your death. Single quote. After silently praying for him, Air turned and left. Returning to the palace in the capital, Air explained everything that happened today to Cobra and others. Of course, he didn't mention Pluton in public. He just used the excuse of overhearing that Crocodile wanted to steal the country to fool everyone. Hina crossed her arms, looked at Air who had pain in her balls, and said coldly. You and Smoker are both idiots. You disobeyed orders, acted without permission, and even killed a Shichibukai. I think you will be punished when you return to the headquarters this time. Hina is very happy. Looking at Hina who was making sarcastic remarks, Air said with a wry smile, yes, Marshal Sengoku is very angry this time. It seems that there is no need to think about promotion. Don't demote me a few levels. Just let me be a soldier. I will be satisfied. Perhaps Hina should call you Air Seaman First Class, what do you think, Lieutenant Colonel? After patting Air on the shoulder, Hina turned and left with a faint smile on her lips. Half a month later, Air, who was struggling, finally returned to the familiar naval headquarters. After disbanding his soldiers, Air came to the marshal's office alone. Dong dong dong, please come in. Air opened a crack and carefully poked his head out. As soon as he saw the situation inside clearly, Air was startled. He quickly opened the door, stood at attention and saluted. Marshal Sengoku, Akainu Admiral, Aokiji Admiral, Kizaru Admiral, Crane Vice Admiral. Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air comes to report on his duties. That's right, except for Sengoku, Marine's three most powerful admirals and the Vice Admiral were all present. When Air announced his address, several big shots looked at him. The strong sense of oppression made Air's anus clenched and she became nervous instinctively. It was Aokiji Kuzan who spoke first, breaking the oppressive atmosphere in the room. Alara, is this Air? I heard Teacher Zephyr mention you more than once. It's so scary, today's young people. I was shocked when I heard the news that Crocodile was defeated. You don't need to look at it. This sinister tone sounds like it was spoken by Kizaru. Both admirals spoke, but Akainu sat there silently, lowering his head and wondering what he was thinking. Regarding the compliments from the two admirals, Air modestly declined. No, I'm far behind compared to the two admirals. Bang, brat, do you think this is a compliment to you? Do you know how much effort I put into suppressing this matter? Even the 5 elders knew about it and reprimanded me. The angry Sengoku opened his mouth and responded, and the unreasonable Air was too embarrassed to refute. After Sengoku finished speaking and his anger subsided a little, Granny He, who had been silent until now, spoke. Okay Sengoku, things have already happened, and it is useless to hold people responsible. Let's ask Air first what the conflict between the two of them was about. After saying that, she turned to stare at Air and said, tell me exactly what happened that day. When she looked at him like this, Air felt like all his secrets were being seen through. He bit the bullet and told the story he had already made up. That day, and then there was a fight, blah blah blah, and then he died, that's it. That is to say, you accidentally discovered that Crocodile wanted to steal Alabasta's throne, and then you guys fought, right? Granny He looked at him meaningfully, her words full of doubt. Air nodded in agreement without blushing, yes, that's the reason. Although Grandma He didn't see anything from Air's expression, there were still obvious flaws in Air's words. Just when she wanted to continue questioning, the phone on Sengoku's desk rang. Bolu Bolu Bolu. Moses Moses, this is Marshal Sengoku. Sengoku picked up the phone and said. An old voice came from the other end of the phone, attracting the attention of everyone present. Sengoku, give the phone bug to that brat named Air. Sengoku was stunned when he heard this, waved to Air, handed him the phone bug, and said at the same time, 5 elders, show me some respect. 5 elders. Air was shocked when he heard this name. He was very familiar with this name. 5 elders refers to the 5 representatives of the celestial dragons, the supreme leaders of the world government. Of course, Air, who has traveled through time, knows that there is a mysterious Lord I Am controlling everything behind them. But this does not hinder the fact that the 5 people are the pinnacle of power in this world. The moment he answered the call, Air, who should have been in a panic, calmed down inexplicably. Lord 5 Elders, I am Lieutenant Colonel Air. Above the red line, the Holy Land Mariajoy, in the city of Pangu. The 5 elders were sitting around a table. One of the 5 elders was bald and had a mustache. Top man Wachuli said to the phone bug on the table. You little brat from the Neferutari family, you have done something incredible. Air's calm Kaido. Ah, it seems so. Hearing this calm tone, the brows of the Sengoku people jumped. Wachuli didn't care about his tone and continued. Tell me why you fought Crocodile and what his purpose was. Air raised a smile on his lips and teased, didn't you guess it? That's right, it's for the secret of the Neferutari royal family, that piece of historical text about something incredible. Do you want me to reveal it? That's enough. No need to say more. Wachuli interrupted Air's words and said in a deep tone, this is the end of Crocodile's matter. We will declare his crime. You did a good job. Thank you very much, Lord 5 Elders, otherwise I really don't know what to do. While speaking, Air also glanced at Sengoku, which made Sengoku furious. If this kid hadn't been talking to the 5 elders, he would have gone up and punched him twice. Seeing Sengoku like this, Air's heart skipped a beat and he quickly asked seriously. Excuse me, Lord 5 Elders, do you have any other instructions? The voiceover there was silent for a while, and then suddenly asked, Kid, what's the matter with the D in your name? Coming. Single quote. Air knew this day would come a long time ago. A descendant of 20 kings with a D in his name will sooner or later be noticed by interested people. Is this it? In memory of my mother who died in childbirth, my father took out a D from her name and changed it. From the look of the comics, I Am didn't even know there was a D in Lily's name at first. This was not what Air said randomly, but what Cobra told him when he asked Cobra why he was the only one with a D in his name. As for the truth, that's none of his business. I see, I understand. Kid, give the phone bug to Sengoku, I have something to tell you. Air did as he was told. After Sengoku took the phone, he glared at him fiercely and said. I am Sengoku, what are your orders? The government will issue a notice later. Crocodile intended to usurp the throne of Alabasta. He was discovered and killed by Marine Lieutenant Colonel Air in advance. I don't need to explain the rest. Sengoku glanced at Air in surprise, and Air responded with an expression that said it was none of my business. Yes, I understand. That's it. The phone has hung up. In Pangu City, Wachuli glanced at the 4 people and asked, what do you think? The bald 5 elders holding the sword said angrily, he's just a traitor, just destroy him. The 5 elders with curly hair and a hat agreed, that's right, and this guy actually has D in his name, he doesn't even take us seriously. Bearded 5 elders has an attitude of, I listen to you, don't ask me. 5 elders in a yellow-haired suit knocked on the table, stopped the 2 yelling people, and said. Stop arguing, you are just a non-threatening kid. The time is not yet ripe, so let's put it on hold for now. Don't forget the adults' plan. After hearing this, several other people were silent for a while, nodded in agreement, and put the matter aside for the time being. On the other side, in the marshal's office, even after hanging up the phone, there was still a weird atmosphere in the office. It's so scary, Brother Air, it's really amazing that you can still talk calmly in the face of big figures like 5 elders. Kizaru pouted and praised in a strange accent. You must know that even as an admiral, I have never spoken to the 5 elders in this tone. Aokiji and Akainu also looked at Air with strange eyes, not knowing what they were thinking. Air was about to make a joke, but when he was fooled, he suddenly interrupted. It must be because of Nefertari. Hearing Granny he speak, several people's attention was attracted. Even Air looked at her in surprise. He crossed his hands on his chest and said calmly, 800 years ago, 20 kings jointly formed the world government. 19 of them abandoned their original countries and moved to the Holy Land Mariajoy. Their descendants are today's celestial dragons. After a pause, she looked up at Air and continued, but there is another king who refused to move into the Holy Land and returned to his homeland to continue his original rule. And this country is Alabasta, and this king is the ancestor of the Neferutari family." Quote. After the words fell, the three admirals including Sengoku widened their eyes in surprise. This was the first time for them to hear this kind of secret. Air shook his head and smiled bitterly, and praised, as expected of Crane Vice Admiral, "He even knows this. But please don't compare me with trash like celestial dragons, I am different from them." Aokiji, who was shocked by the breaking news, took a while to regain his composure and said briskly, "Alala, you are the only one who can say this, little brother. Ordinary people say celestial dragons is garbage, and the consequences will be very serious. Hey, if you put it this way, can Brother Air not obey the orders of the celestial dragons?" Kizaru asked curiously, crossing his legs. Even as an admiral, he has to obey the command of the celestial dragons. He is very curious about what Air, who is half a celestial dragon, will do when he meets the celestial dragons. Scratching his head, Air thought about that scene for a moment, shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe. As a Marine, obeying orders is the rule of the military. No matter what the status is or what the reason is, as long as it is an order, a soldier must obey it." Akainu, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. Akainu's words made Air instinctively unhappy, but he didn't say anything and just dealt with it in silence. Afterwards, the office became quiet again. Seeing that the atmosphere in the venue had cooled down again, Sengoku pressed his swollen temples and spoke calmly. "Okay, we'll talk about these things later, let's talk about Air's situation first." After drawing everyone's attention back, Sengoku said, "Originally, I wanted this fool kid to go back to the recruiting camp for 2 years to review, but you also heard what the 5 elders just said. According to this situation, Air is not only not at fault, but should be rewarded." Quote. Air trembled when he heard that he was about to be sent back to the recruiting camp. Fortunately, Sengoku changed his tone and turned punishment into a reward, which made him sigh in relief. "Thank you, Marshal Sengoku. Idiot, if you dare to do such stupid things next time, I will definitely kick you back to the recruiting camp and let Zephyr teach you a lesson." Air shook his head like a rattle and waved his hands repeatedly to express his fear. Sengoku then sighed and let him go. Chapter 51. Looking at your achievements this time and your contribution to the capture of Heavy Boxer Federi, Ice Bear Quest and others, I announce that Naval Headquarters Lieutenant Colonel Air has been officially promoted to Colonel and serves as the base commander of the G-34 branch. The G-34 branch was the branch that originally governed Alabasta and the nearby sea area. Sengoku's appointment was just in line with Air's wishes. "Yes, thank you, Marshal. I guarantee that no pirate group will pass through in my jurisdiction." Nodding, Sengoku was still very satisfied with his attitude. "Okay, this is over, you can get out." After saluting several people present and saying goodbye, Air turned and left the office. The 3 admirals leaned on the sofa and silently watched him leave, all thinking of Air's information. In the dream column, the words, "Become a Marine Admiral," are clearly written. The 3 of them secretly muttered at the same time, "Arrogant, amazing, terrifying brat." Single quote. After leaving the Marshal's office, Air glanced around in confusion. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar headquarters, he didn't know where to go for a moment. After thinking about it, Air went to the recruiting training camp that he was most familiar with after 5 years of stay. Along the way, Air passed by more than a dozen officers from his headquarters. Most of them were in a hurry. Even if they noticed him, they just glanced at him and ignored him. This situation didn't change until Air came to the recruiting camp. As early as Air arrived not far from the recruit camp, several sailors standing guard at the door recognized him and waved to him excitedly. This situation became even crazier after entering the recruiting camp. When a junior shouted out his name, the scene immediately became uncontrollable. "It's Senior Air. Senior, I am your fan, can you sign your autograph for me? Senior Air, I like you, please date me. No, you should marry me. No, you should have a baby with me." Several cute schoolgirls started arguing as they talked, and even had the tendency to get physical. Seeing that something was wrong, Air quickly used the combination of shave and moonwalk to escape, and disappeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Seeing the idol leaving, everyone dispersed in disappointment. Only 3 bold schoolgirls remained where they were, staring at each other. With such terrifying momentum, even instructor did not dare to step forward to dissuade him. Hiding in a corner, Air observed the situation outside and secretly wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He was quite frightened by these crazy fans just now. At this moment, someone suddenly tapped Air on the shoulder. Thinking that he had been discovered by a fan, Air quickly rubbed oil on his feet and prepared to run away. A hand grabbed his arm, and then a familiar voice said, "Air, it's me." Air calmed down after hearing this voice, and when he looked back, it turned out to be his good friend Ain, whom he had not seen for a long time. She was as concise and capable as ever. Judging from the sweat on her head, she must have been training just now. Air breathed a sigh of relief, and then said happily, "It turns out to be you, I was shocked. Long time no see, how have you been lately?" Ain smiled and let go of his hand, smoothed his hair and said, "It's been a long time indeed. I haven't contacted me since he left. If there hadn't been news that you defeated several big pirates, I thought you had been buried in the sea." After hearing these words, Air remembered. Since he left Marineford, he has never contacted Air and others. Thinking of this, Air couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. I'm sorry. I apologize for making you worry about me." "Idiot, who is worried about you?" Ain blushed and muttered shyly. Air didn't react and continued subconsciously, "Yeah, that's good." After finishing speaking, Air realized what stupid thing he had just done, and he wanted to give himself 2 big mouths. Just when he was thinking about how to find extra time, Ain returned to normal and changed the subject. "By the way, Binz doesn't know about your return yet, let's go find him. I almost forgot about him. Let's go now." Air's attention was diverted. He patted his head and then thought of his good brother Binz. He greeted Ain and turned towards the place where the two often trained together. Looking at Air, who didn't even look back, Ain secretly cursed, "Idiot," and hurriedly chased after him. At noon, in a restaurant owned by military families, Air, Ain, and Binz sat together and chatted about their recent experiences. Among them, Air, who had traveled from Grand Line to East Blue, had the most say. He kept telling his story to the two of them. Hey, as expected of Air, he captured a pirate with a bounty of 88 million as soon as he left the headquarters. That's really impressive. No way, Vice Admiral Garp's grandson really wants to be a pirate, and he asked you to go to East Blue to educate them. A scum like Mouse is not worthy of being a Marine. He is simply a disgrace to Marine. Sister Hina, speaking of which, I haven't seen her for a long time. Nani, Air, you killed Crocodile of the 7 warlords of the sea, you're lying. By the time the story was finished, Air's mouth was a little dry, but he couldn't help but nodded with satisfaction as he watched the two good listeners exclaiming as the story went up and down. After the story was told and the wine was almost drunk, Ain suddenly said with longing, "It's really interesting to go to sea, but it's coming soon. Binz and I will graduate in a few days." Speaking of this, even Ain, who has always been calm, couldn't help but look forward to the day of graduation and chattered about his plans for the future. Only Air was stunned and fell into silence when he heard the news. He remembered it very clearly. Zephyr was in Ain's class, and when he was leading the graduating students to go overseas for internship, he was attacked by Edward Wable, who called himself Whitebeard too. Times here have been changed. Except for Ain and Binz, all the students on the ship were killed. Even teacher Zephyr had an arm cut off by him. Although Air is not as familiar with these students as Ain, they are all his companions who have been with him for 5 years. Moreover, teacher Zephyr has taught me unreservedly for so many years, and I cannot just sit back and watch because of the situation. Air, who had a keen mind, noticed his abnormality and asked worriedly, "Air, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere?" Air was stunned for a moment. When he saw the two people looking at him with concern, he explained with a smile, "No, I am a Phantom Beast type user with a very good body." Binz was relieved to hear that he was okay. But Ain continued to ask, "Then why do you look a little unhappy?" "Women are really keen," Air thought helplessly. "I was just wondering what excuse I should use to go with you. I'm also quite interested in this internship." Ain was relieved after hearing this, and then she thought of the scene of the 3 of them reuniting and going out to sea to catch pirates. They excitedly discussed how to get teacher Zephyr to be merciful and take Air with him. Seeing the two friends talking and laughing, Air put aside his worries and joined their discussion. The next day, the three of them came to Zephyr's office together, and Air told Zephyr his plan. You, a graduated guy, want to participate in an internship. Zephyr looked at Air with an expression on his face that was teasing me. Air poured him a glass of wine in a flattering manner, Binz was massaging his shoulders, and Ain was acting coquettishly. Teacher Zephyr, just promise him, we also want to act with Air, just treat it as a make-up assessment. Seeing the cute student acting coquettishly towards him, Zephyr couldn't stand it for a while. This is not something I can decide. I can only agree to it if the marshal approves it. Seeing that teacher Zephyr's attitude was relaxed, Ain took advantage of the victory and pursued him. Marshal Sengoku is your friend. As long as you ask, he will definitely agree. Teacher, just agree. Air also handed him the wine glass and looked at him with a pitiful expression. Zephyr reluctantly took the wine and drank it, then nodded in agreement. The three of them cheered and worked more diligently to massage him and pour him wine. Zephyr could only shake his head and smile bitterly. In this way, 5 days later, Air boarded the training ship with Ain and others. The students of the same class on the boat couldn't help but exclaimed when they saw Air, and quickly gathered around him. Air, haven't you graduated? Why are you still interning with us? Yes, I obviously heard that you defeated the former Shichibukai and have been promoted to colonel. Is there any special mission this time? Everyone was talking so much that Air couldn't stand it anymore, so he had to find an excuse to fool them, and then he managed to escape. After running into the cabin and arriving at his room, he saw Ain and Binz already sitting on the bed, waiting for him, and then he complained. I didn't expect that my victory over Crocodile would spread so quickly. Marshal Sengoku obviously said that this was a stain on the government and should be kept secret. Air picked up a newspaper in a funny way and said with a strange tone, didn't you read it? This is today's world economic news. I didn't expect that you are still a prince, Air. Nani, Air exclaimed, took the newspaper and read it carefully. The first title is very eye-catching, Marine Supernova Kills 7 Warlords of the Sea. Single quote. Then Air saw his big profile picture, and the most interesting thing was that it was his ID photo from Marine. I don't know how Morgans got this Birdman. Then there is an introduction to Air's life, including his fruit abilities. Then there is the story of how he killed Crocodile. Except for the fact that he killed Lao Sha, the rest is all nonsense. He even wrote such nonsense as the battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and Crocodile knelt down to beg for mercy. He even boasted about Air, calling him a marine supernova and the future admiral. Although it is true, it is too ostentatious. Finally, Air also saw a photo of himself as a child with Cobra holding Vivi and holding her hand on a section. It seemed to be a photo taken while out on patrol. The above introduces Cobra's identity and describes himself as the Prince of Alabasta. That's right, he is Cobra's adopted son and can be considered a prince. However, this behavior of Morgan's is likely to attract a group of pirates who hate him, which will be detrimental to Cobra, Vivi and others. Closing the newspaper, Air couldn't help but curse. Morgans, sooner or later I'm going to find you, pluck out all your bird feathers, and throw you into a pot to make soup. Why are you so angry? Isn't this a good thing? Looking at the angry Air, Binz asked in confusion. Air sighed helplessly, looked at the newspaper in his hand and murmured, I really have to. He's famous all over the world, this little brat. Ha ha ha. Somewhere in the New World Garp read the latest newspaper, eating donuts and laughing nonchalantly. Bogart stood beside him and said with the same emotion, Air. When I first met him, he was a kid who didn't understand anything. I didn't expect that he would become so famous in just a few years. Quote. Ha ha ha, isn't this bad? Marine's future depends on these young people. The Whitebeard pirates, aboard the Moby Dick. The world's strongest man, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate drank the wine in one gulp, looked at Marco holding the newspaper and asked, is that kid playing in the sand dead? That's right, Dad, the newspaper said that he was defeated head-on by a 13-year-old boy. Morgans called him the future Marine Admiral. Beulah la la, that guy Sengoku still trains some good brats. The future Marine Admiral, such brats are still far away. When you come to New World and see the vastness of the world, if you are not dead, stop talking nonsense like this. Quote. Wanokuni, Ghost Island. Kaido drank wine and cried loudly. Ooh. The boys of Beast's pirates looked at their boss who was getting drunk and crazy again, and they all stayed away, not daring to come forward at all. Yan Liangjin looked at Kaido and said calmly, give up. Since he is a marine, there is no way he will join us anyway. But I want it so much, Kaido started acting coquettishly and said unreasonably. Jin sighed and comforted him helplessly. Then wait until he comes to New World, capture him and throw him into the Rabbit Dawn, forcing him to join. Hearing this, Kaido beamed and clapped happily in agreement. Oh, Higurashi, what a good method, that's it. I must get the Phantom Beast breed. Not to mention that with the newspaper, a lot of big guys in New World knew about Air. Just say that in the first half of the Grand Line, on an unknown island, the interns led by Zephyr were fighting fiercely with a group of pirates. Pirates, go to hell. Lush, lush, Bins shouted while doing a weird dance. Following his movements, a large number of vines sprouted from the ground, tying up all the dozens of pirates nearby. Ain stepped forward with 2 short blades in hand, and eliminated the pirates who were tied up and unable to move one by one. The two cooperated tacitly, and a large number of pirates were killed by them as they moved left and right, clearing a spacious road. Seeing that his men were so vulnerable, the pirate captain angrily kicked away the students who were entangled with him and jumped towards the 2 of them. Ain had noticed him a long time ago. When he rushed towards him with his sword, she flashed in front of the pirate captain and patted him twice with her hand that emitted purple light. A young man aged 32 or 3 turned into an 8 or 9-year-old kid in front of everyone. The pirate captain looked at his hands in disbelief and asked in a sweet voice. What did you do to me? Give me my power back. Ain kicked him to the ground, and without any instructions, Bins controlled Tang Man to tie the guy tightly into a rice dumpling, and also blocked his mouth. Seeing that the situation was over, the pirates scattered and fled. The marine students shouted excitedly and ran after him. Looking at everything that happened on the island, Air yawned out of boredom and complained, it's so boring. It's not interesting at all to just watch here. Zephyr snorted and said impatiently, he's just a 30 million little pirate. If you take action, this internship will be meaningless. Just stay here. Yes, I. Before he finished speaking, Air's eyes flashed red and he turned to look in a certain direction on the island. Teacher, do you feel it? A powerful guy is coming. Sensing it with all his strength, Air had a rough guess about the identity of the person coming. Zephyr also looked solemnly in that direction and responded, ah, I saw it, he is an incredible guy. Air, call the little guys back first. Air nodded, opened his mouth and let out a loud dragon roar. The sound spread around and reached the ears of Ain and other students. It's Air's dragon roar. What happened? Let's go back quickly. Ain shouted, stopped the students who were still chasing the pirates, and led them to the warship immediately. When Ain and the others came back, the aura they sensed had already appeared in front of them. Looking at the mother and son, one tall and one short, Air immediately confirmed his guess. Zephyr also recognized the fat man and said with a serious expression, it's Edward Wable with a bounty of 480 million. It seems that he is in a bit of trouble this time. Edward Wable, in the original novel, killed a large number of marine students and cut off one of Zephyr's arms. After the Summit War, he was incorporated into the 7 warlords of the sea by the government, causing Zephyr to quit marine. The other side, wearing sunglasses and leaning on a cane, the short, wrinkled old woman put down the telescope in her hand and said to the tall but dull-looking Wable next to her. It's the former Marine Admiral Zephyr. I didn't expect to meet him here. It looks like they just killed a group of pirates and should have gained a lot. Hey, Mom, do you want me to kill them? The ugly Wable, who has the same crescent beard as Whitebeard, is tall and fat, asked excitedly. Idiot son, this old man is still the original admiral after all. If you have this time, you might as well sack 2 small towns. There is no need to fight to the death with him. After saying that, the old woman Miss Bajan wanted to take Wable away, but at this time Zephyr jumped on the moonwalk to catch up. Stop, scum of the sea, now that I've met you, don't even think about leaving. Zephyr stood in front of the 2 of them and said righteously. Air on the ship shook his head helplessly when he saw this, and quickly used his wings to follow, arriving next to Zephyr. Wable scratched his head, looked at Ba Jin in confusion and asked, Mom, what should we do? Our road is blocked. Ba Jin ignored him, looked at Zephyr arrogantly and said, "Do you want to arrest us?" What a shameless statement. She waved her crutch and pointed it at Zephyr in air, and ordered, "Wabel, come up, let them see the power of Whitebeard's heirs." "Oh, I'm on it." Wabel let out a strange scream, brandished the same naginata as Whitebeard, and rushed towards Air and the two of them with his short, chopstick-thin legs. Looking at Wabel, who was nearly 7 meters tall, Air pulled out Changdong and instantly transformed into a human animal shape, swinging his sword and colliding with Wabel. When the two swords were combined, and a huge force was transmitted through Changdong, Air gritted his teeth and used both hands to swing the naginata away. Taking advantage of the situation, he aimed at the gap at his neck and swept away. Wabel turned around to avoid it, then turned and hit Air on the back with the handle of the knife. Air stepped on his foot, and the figure flashed behind him and distanced himself from him. Whether it's the armament or the intelligence, this guy's level is not low. Coupled with that strange strength, he is indeed a man who is as powerful as Whitebeard when he was young, as Kizaru himself admitted. Single quote. Teacher Zephyr, it looks like we have to join forces. I can't handle this guy alone. Zephyr took off his eyes, rolled up his sleeves, smiled and said, "Kid, let me see if your strength has improved recently." After saying that, he wrapped his hands in armed colors, stepped on the ground and appeared in front of Wabel, and punched him in the face. Armed iron body shattered. Wabel didn't check for a moment and was directly hit and flew backwards towards Air. "I can't let you stand out alone, teacher." One sword style, caressing and cutting. Following the words, a black flying slash struck Wabel's chest head-on. Suddenly, there was a not too deep wound on his chest. This guy's weaponry is so strong. Before he learns internal destruction, my attacks won't do much damage to him. Single quote. Ah, it hurts. Even though the wound was not serious, Wabel was still lying on the ground rolling back and forth in pain. Upon seeing this, Ba Jin quickly reprimanded, "Idiot son, what are you doing? Get up and deal with them." Hearing her voice, Air shifted his gaze. "Old woman, don't scream here, watch me kill you." After saying that, Air roared at her with the roar of a fire dragon, intending to kill her first. At this moment, Wabel, who was still lying on the ground, suddenly stood in front of Ba Jin and split the fire pillar with a knife. "Asshole, don't even think about hurting mom. I'm angry." Ba Jin, who was hiding behind him and was startled, saw Wabel entering a state of anger and shouted excitedly, "That's it, my lovely son, kill them quickly." Wabel roared angrily, and also swung a powerful slash, attacking Air. Air snorted, "It seems we still have to deal with this guy first." Thinking like this, he raised his sword to block the slash. At this moment, Zephyr jumped up from behind him, closed his fists in front of his chest, and pressed against Wabel's chest. 6 styles, 6 King's Spear. A huge shock wave rushed towards his fists, penetrated Wabel's chest, and knocked him away along with Ba Jin behind him. He flew hundreds of meters away before hitting a boulder and stopping. Ba Jin was crushed by her lovely son and fainted on the spot. Wabel, on the other hand, didn't notice it. He spit out a mouthful of blood, patted the dust on his body and stood up. Upon seeing this, Air was very impressed by his resilience, and quickly rushed to him again, roaring, "I'm going to kill you today." One sword style 3 unique cuts. Air slashed 3 times, but they were all blocked by Wabel's weapon, leaving only a few shallow scars. People who didn't know better thought I was doing scraping. Air secretly complained in his heart. At this time, Wabel also started to fight back. He simply swiped his sword, but Air used all his strength to block the blow with difficulty. Is this more like taking drugs? Why is it so powerful? Single quote. Before Air could think about it, Wabel continued to attack, completely ignoring Zephyr. Dang dang dang. After several consecutive chops, Air's hands were shaking. Fortunately, Zephyr came to support at this time and knocked Wabel away with another punch. Glancing at him, Zephyr said nothing and continued to rush forward and get entangled with Wabel. Clenching his fists and stopping the trembling of his hands, Air took Changdong in front of his eyes and saw that, as expected, there were several gaps on it. Angrily, he sheathed Changdong, took off the entire knife from his waist and inserted it into the ground. Air looked at Wabel, who broke his saber, and his anger rose. This is the first time in all these years that Lousy feels so aggrieved. You stupid thing, let's see how Lousy beats you to death. 6 Styles Life returned full power. Air, who was originally only over 3 meters tall in his human animal form, quickly expanded in size after using up his life to return it, turning into a 10-meter tall little giant in the blink of an eye. He bent his legs to gather strength, then kicked the ground and shot out like a cannonball. The iron fist of the fire dragon. Zephyr sensed Air's change and quickly stepped aside to avoid it. Wabel, who didn't understand the situation, took a solid punch from Air and was knocked backwards by the huge force. Air didn't stop, and used his shaved figure to dodge, and came to behind Wabel first. The fire dragon's hook, a kick packed with blazing heat, kicked him high into the air, followed by a flap of wings. It's not over yet. Red Lotus Fire Dragon Fist. With his hands covered in flames, Air struck hundreds of blows beneath him, knock him several thousand meters into the air. Wabel's chest was already scorched by the high temperature, and a disgusting smell of meat came from his body. Air didn't give up. He came behind him and locked his limbs with his hands and feet, preventing him from using any strength. Then flames surged out of his body, and he spun at high speed in the sky with the help of his wings. After spinning for 30 minutes, until his brains were almost shaken out, Air used his special move. The Lotus of the Fire Dragon. Zephyr on the ground and the students watching from a distance watched the flaming meteor fall rapidly from the sky, and finally hit the ground hard, raising a large cloud of smoke. Zephyr coughed a few times, waved his hands to disperse the smoke and dust, and hurried towards the place where Air landed. In a large pit hundreds of meters in diameter, Air was dressed in a beggar's outfit and returned to his human form. He retched and climbed up from the bottom of the pit. Zephyr came to him, lifted him up and asked with concern, "How are you doing? Is the brat okay?" Air opened his mouth wide and vomited out all the contents in his stomach. Zephyr patted his back gently. After a while, he finally took a breath and said, "Okay, much better. Ahem, I won't use this idiot move anymore." He slapped Air hard on the back angrily, causing him to cough again due to the pain. Zephyr looked at Wabel in the pit, and saw that this guy's body was charred, his legs were drooped, and his head was stuck deep into the ground. Just when Zephyr thought Wabel was dead, unexpectedly, this guy's hand suddenly moved and he started struggling to stand up. Zephyr was shocked. What kind of monster physique is this? Has it not lost consciousness after suffering such a violent attack? Quote. Without any time to think, he jumped into the pit. He kicked him away, and before he could recover, he hit his head with dozens of punches wrapped in armor. Air was also shocked, and regardless of the consequences, he jumped down into the pit and punched and kicked him. The two fought for a full 2 hours until Zephyr's old habit relapsed and he couldn't help but take out the therapeutic spray and took 2 puffs before giving up. After taking a few deep breaths, Air couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth when he looked at Wabel, whose head was smashed and could no longer die. This unlucky child was really miserable. He died inexplicably under the unreasonable punches of the master and apprentice, and he deserved it. After spitting fire and cremating the unfortunate thing, Air helped Zephyr, who was exhausted, back to the warship. When he saw Ba Jin, who was still in a coma on the way, Air didn't forget to give her a ride on the finger pistol. After all, a family should be neat and tidy. On the boat, when they saw Air helping teacher Zephyr back, the students quickly brought chairs and helped him sit down. Seeing the concerned eyes of the lovely students, Zephyr couldn't help but feel very pleased. He refused the examination by the doctor on the ship, looked at everyone and said, "Something unexpected happened this time. If Air hadn't been there, the consequences would have been disastrous. I will explain this to Sengoku later. Now we will set sail immediately and return to Marineford." The students looked at each other, then nodded and started to act according to Zephyr's instructions. After everyone left, Zephyr praised Air, "Thanks to you this time, otherwise I would definitely not be his opponent in my current situation. I will explain it to Sengoku and ask for credit for you." Air leaned his chair against the railing of the deck, waved casually and said, "I just came over on a whim out of curiosity to have a look. I didn't expect that I actually met a powerful guy. I can only say it was all luck." Zephyr just smiled and said, "Whatever you say, I'm going back to the cabin to rest." After that, he got up and walked into the cabin. "That's right. He suddenly turned his head and looked at Air's beggar and said with a fake smile, "Although your posture is cool, if you look like this, others will think you are a pervert." After that, he laughed and left. After returning to the room and changing out of his clothes that were almost exposed, Air washed himself and lay down on the bed. System, open the panel. Single quote. Ding. Nefertari D. Air. Gender, male. Age, 13. Height, 174. Personal abilities. Constitution S 121 50,000ths, Swordsmanship A 1,320 30,000ths, Physical Skills A 1,532 30,000ths. Hockey. Armament Hockey A 425 30,000ths, Observation Hockey A 532 30,000ths, Conquerors Hockey B 2011 10,000ths. Skill moves. Shave B 9,217 10,000ths, Moonwalk B 8,584 10,000ths, Tempest Kick B 8,847 10,000ths, Finger Pistol B 8,051 10,000ths, Iron Body C 4,643 5,000ths, Paper Arts C 4,221 5,000ths. Devil Fruit. Dragon Fruit S 109 50,000ths. Experience points 60,006. Fusionable fruits. 1. Overall evaluation. S downstream Shichibukai level. What's left from before, plus Lao Sha, and this time, I didn't expect to have more than 60,000 experience points. Single quote. More than 60,000 years of experience would be enough to upgrade one of his physique or fruits to SS level, but in this case, he was afraid that his other abilities would not be able to keep up. Seeing the experience on the data panel, Air was a little confused. After thinking about it, he finally made up his mind to increase the fruit's ability to SS first. As for the rest, at worst, he would then go crazy to catch pirates and brush them all up. Just do it when you think of it, and with a thought, the fire dragon fruit successfully came from S level to SS 1,250,000. Suddenly, Air decided that he had better control over the fruit. As he stretched out his hand, the temperature of the flame in his palm became even hotter. Why has the SS upgrade experience increased so much? You're screwing up the system. Single quote. Ding. S level is the limit for normal people, while SS and above are the category of monsters, and the required experience will increase. There was nothing the system could do. After cursing a few words, Air added the remaining 10,005 experience points to the weapon color, and then closed the panel with satisfaction. Lying on the bed, silently thinking about gaining an ability again. He had considered it before. Referring to the original work, the ones that best fit his ideas are Enel's Thunder Fruit, the Fantasy Beast Vampire Fruit in a Corner of Sleepy Town, and Golden Lion's Lion Fruit, etc. These are all excellent fruits that are very helpful to Air, especially the Vampire Fruit. That is the best of the best that can gain a long life and bring people back to youth. Unfortunately, even Air doesn't know the exact location of this fruit. I can only look for it slowly in the future. As for the Golden Lion, this guy has been floating in the sky over a certain sea area since he escaped from prison, and he couldn't be found for a while. Only Enel, this guy is supposed to have just become the new god of Angel Island, just by heading to Magic Valley Town on Gaia Island. Then he can turn into a dragon and fly up to find him. Thinking of this, Air made up his mind that when he returned, he must go to Sky Island to kill Enel, the unlucky thing. While he was thinking, there was a knock on the door of the room. Air opened his perception after seeing and hearing, and when he saw it was them, he directly asked them to come in. Ain and Bins pushed open the door and entered. Looking at Air lying on the bed, he silently walked to his bed and sat down. Seeing the two of them like this, Air knew that they were worried, so he asked, "What's the matter? You're all depressed." After being quiet for a while, Ain said in a low tone, "Air, do you think we are useless? We have been training for so long, but we can't get involved in today's battle at all." Binzi on the side also nodded sadly and remained silent with a depressed expression. Hearing this, Air didn't know how to comfort them, so he could only sigh and encourage. "It's okay, I don't blame you. After all, you are just students who have just graduated from the training camp, and you still have a long time to come. As long as you keep exercising, I believe that sooner or later you will become the pillar of marine and become a famous strong man on the sea." Quote. After hearing his comfort, Ain pouted unhappily and complained in a low voice. You are obviously younger than me, but you talk like an old man. Air spread his hands helplessly. You came here to seek comfort first. I have fulfilled my duties, and you still want to ridicule me. It's really heartless. Ain smiled and suddenly felt a lot more comfortable. At this time, Binz said, Air, you are now the base commander of G-34. After we graduate, let us follow you. After hearing what he said, Ain nodded in agreement. Air was stunned and asked in confusion, what are you doing with me? Besides, it's not up to me to decide where you go after graduation. Binz looked at him and said firmly, I want to follow you and learn how to become stronger. I will capture powerful pirates with you, exercise my own strength, and strive to learn hockey as soon as possible. As for the assignment issue, I will ask Teacher Zephyr to help transfer me to your ship. Quote. Having never seen Binz look so serious before, Air couldn't help but be touched. Looking at Ain, who was looking at him with the same burning eyes, he nodded and agreed. No problem, I agree. The two immediately smiled and stood up to salute. Thank you, Colonel Air. Please give me your advice in the future. Hey, don't be so serious. Air was confused by their appearance and said funny. Ain shook his head and said stubbornly, this is not allowed. You will be our commander from now on. This is the minimum rule. Okay, whatever you want. Then, Colonel, please continue to rest, we will leave first. Get lost. He picked up a pillow and threw it at the two of them. The two of them smiled and left as if running away. After several days of sailing, everyone returned to the headquarters smoothly. Ah, I'm finally back. Air jumped off the boat and stretched greatly. During this period of time, he was wandering on the sea every day without encountering a single pirate, but it frightened him to death. Yes, after sailing on the sea for so long, I haven't even taken a proper shower, and my body stinks. Ain smelled the clothes on his body and said disgustedly. Sniff sniff. Air leaned over and smelled it. He smelled nothing but a refreshing fragrance, and couldn't help but complain. Miss, after so many days, there has never been a day when you haven't wiped your body, and you still have dozens of changes of clothes with you. You're looking at Binz and I, we're almost moldy, and the teacher doesn't allow us to take a shower, saying we're wasting precious fresh water on the ship. That's it, you have the nerve to complain. Quote. Ain blushed, pushed his face away, put his hands on his hips and said angrily, it's normal for girls to like to be clean. I also worked so hard to steal this water from a pirate ship. What do I want to do? Just do it. After a cut, Air ignored her, put his arm around Binz's shoulders, and whispered in his ear, Hey, Binz. Let's go to that place to have some fun, just relax. Binz's eyes lit up and he asked in a low voice, You mean the place that the seniors often mention? That's right, how about it? Are you going or not? Go, of course. The two looked at each other, showed lewd smiles, and laughed. Ain, who was thrown aside, looked at the two muttering people and asked in confusion, What are you talking about? You are smiling so strangely. Ah, it's nothing. Binz and I plan to go back and take a shower first, and then we will meet at the old place in the evening. Yes, that's it. Ain, let's go first. After saying that, the two of them ran away in a hurry, leaving Ain alone in confusion. Humph, these two fools left me here alone. After cursing, Ain left angrily. In Marineford Commercial Street, in a remote alley. Gu, Binz swallowed and said nervously, Air, are we going in like this? Seeing his unsatisfactory look, Air scolded him, What are you afraid of? This is a regular store with a business license issued by the headquarters. There is nothing to worry about. That's what he said, but he himself was very nervous now. His calves were as heavy as lead and he couldn't move his legs at all. At this time, two old Marines walked by them with their arms around each other. Seeing the two people standing at the door hesitating, as veterans, they immediately understood. One of them said jokingly, Hey, two young guys, are you too scared to go in? Another person also quickly said, Hey, don't say that. These two guys are still young, so it's normal for them not to dare to enter. After all, this is a place only men can enter. After saying that, the two laughed, waved to them and went in. I can bear this. I have never been afraid in this long life. Air couldn't bear it after being provoked by the two of them, so he walked inside. Binzi also puffed up his chest and said angrily, Lousy is a genuine man, how dare you look down on me? He quickly followed after him. As soon as I entered the door, I saw 2 rows of young ladies in cool clothes standing respectfully on the left and right. When they saw a guest coming in, they immediately bent down and shouted to them, Welcome. Binz had never seen such an exciting scene before. He quickly grabbed Air's arm nervously and couldn't even say a word. Fortunately, Air had seen the big world and quickly regained his composure. He just nodded slightly and led Binz to the front desk. The young lady at the front desk saw the 2 of them and asked enthusiastically, 2 distinguished guests, do you need anything? Air, who had already inquired about the information from his previous senior, pretended to be expert and said, help us prepare 2 private rooms and arrange the best VIP package. Upon hearing about the VIP set meal, the young lady became even more enthusiastic. She quickly walked out of the counter and led the 2 of them deeper into the store. Air and the other 2 followed her silently. When they came to the 2 adjacent bedrooms, the young lady opened the doors one by one, smiled and said to the 2 of them, please take a rest for a while, the service staff will be here soon. Air smiled, winked at Binz, and stepped into the room. The decoration in the room is Japanese style, with a large bed for resting, a coffee table and soft cushions for sitting on the side. Opening the sliding door, there was a separated outdoor hot spring outside the house. Air walked over and stretched out his hand to test it. The water temperature was just right. At this time, there was a knock on the door. 2 young and beautiful women, wearing kimonos, said sorry and opened the door and walked in. When the 2 saw Air, they bowed respectfully and introduced themselves. Hello, guest, I am Xiaoguang. I'm Xiao Wu. Next, we will help you change your clothes and take a bath. A few minutes later, Air sat on a low stool by the hot spring wrapped in a bath towel. The 2 women gently wet Air's body and applied shower gel. Start cleaning his body. Xiaoguang. Guest, your muscles are great. You must exercise regularly. Xiao Wu. I saw that the guest was wearing a cloak that only lieutenants wear. I didn't expect that the guest would have a successful career at such a young age. He will definitely have a bright future. Listening to the compliments of the 2 girls, Air couldn't help but said happily, it's not bad, I was lucky enough to capture a few pirates. You are so humble, only with an excellent marine like you as our guest can we live a peaceful life. Yes, everything is thanks to you marine samas. Just like that, Air finished the bath under the compliments of the 2 beauties, and then happily soaked in the hot spring. While enjoying the comfort and relaxation of the hot spring, a beautiful woman massages and dances for you. Of course, apart from these, Air did nothing else. After the whole process, it was already evening. Air smiled and waved goodbye to the 2 beauties, and chatted with Binz about the attentive service in the store, and made an appointment to come back next time. Just like that, the 2 of them laughed and opened the door and walked out. Air, Binz, did you have fun? A cold voice came from the side, and the 2 people who were so excited just now suddenly broke out in a layer of cold sweat. The 2 of them turned to look at the same time, only to see Ain with a cold face, arms folded across his chest, looking at the 2 of them with murderous intent, especially towards Air. Seeing this situation, Binz suddenly enlightened. He made a fist with his left hand and knocked it on the palm of his right hand. He suddenly said in realization, I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do. You guys can talk, I'm leaving first. After saying that, he ran wildly, even shaving, and disappeared in front of the 2 of them in the blink of an eye. Air opened his mouth wide and stared at his disappearing back in stunned silence, cursing fiercely in his heart. Son of a fool, let's sell lousy now. You're an unloyal thing. Just wait for me and see how I deal with you when I get back. Single quote. Ha, you're the only one left now. Please explain it to me. Ain snorted coldly and said with an attitude of, I'll see what you can do with your quibbles. Air smiled awkwardly, feeling as if he had been caught and raped by his wife. After scanning the surroundings and seeing that someone had noticed, Air quickly pulled her and ran into an uninhabited alley. After entering the alley and using his sense of sight and color to make sure that no one was there, Air said, Ain, don't get me wrong, we just went for a massage and a hot spring bath, and we didn't do anything else. After shaking off her hand and still holding her own, Ain said in amusement, you haven't done anything yet. But I heard that this store is full of young and beautiful beauties who specialize in seducing men. She was a little embarrassed, but she spoke anyway. Air quickly retorted and explained for herself, who said that this is obviously a regular massage parlor, and her family has a genuine business license. Ain looked at him suspiciously and asked suspiciously, really? Then why did Binz get scared away when he saw me? After greeting Binz dozens of times in his heart, Air laughed and said, didn't you listen to what he said? He really has something else to do. After a pause, Air said seriously, besides, didn't he create an opportunity for us to be alone together? Ain blushed, lowered his head and said shyly, what are you talking about? Don't make such a joke. Air shamelessly held her hand, leaned close to her ear and teased, then why were you jealous just now, but you looked quite cute when you were angry. Idiot, I'm not jealous. Go away, I'm going back to rest. Ain's cheeks were burning, and he quickly wanted to shake off his hand and escape back to the dormitory. Air could not fulfill her wish. Not only did he hold his hand tighter, he simply closed his eyes and kissed her red lips. Ain's whole body was stiff, and he stood there blankly without resisting. Steam seemed to evaporate from his overheated brain. Ain, whose brain was down, was at a loss as to what to do. But gradually, her expression softened, she hugged Air and responded. After a long time, the lips parted. Air raised his head and recalled the feeling just now, and couldn't help but lick the corner of his mouth. Ain, who was originally shy, looked up secretly and happened to see his movements. She quickly grabbed his face in shame and anger and shouted to stop him, no. This is too shameful. Air, whose cheeks were pulled, raised his hands and said incoherently, I understand, please let go of your hands first. Only then did Ain react, let go of his hand, rubbed the corners of his clothes and said angrily, don't do this again. What does this mean? I don't understand. After saying that, he laughed evilly, took her hand and ran out of the alley. Fool, Ain cursed angrily, but did not resist and allowed him to pull him. With a smile that could not be concealed, he followed him out of the alley. That night, many people saw a young couple walking through the streets, and the whole street was filled with their laughter. In the next few days, Air accompanied his young girlfriend Ain, who was already in a relationship, to relax in Marineford. During this period, Air also found an opportunity to take the damaged Changdong to a knife shop, where it was repaired and maintained. Overall, life was going well. It was a bitter experience for good brother Binz. That night, when he saw the two of them coming back hand in hand, he still couldn't accept it. What made him even more sad was that from that day on, the two of them were completely stuck together, inseparable all day long, making him seem like an outsider. Fortunately, the painful days have finally passed. On this day, Air was called to the marshal's office. After receiving a meal of praise and encouragement from Sengoku, Air successfully returned to the dormitory with the transfer order of Ain and Binz to join the G34 branch. Temporary dormitories allocated later. Air immediately shared the good news with Ain, and the two hugged each other and celebrated, causing Binz, who had just opened the door to come in, to move forward or backward, which was very tortuous. You two, I understand how you feel, but you also have to look at the occasion. You make me very unconscious and feel a bit redundant. Binz walked around them and sat on the bed, saying with a grimace. Letting go of the beauty in his arms, Air looked at the light bulb and said angrily, what are you doing? If you don't like it, you can find one. There are so many young girls in this department, just go after whoever you like. Ain also looked at him funny and said in agreement, I see there are several beautiful junior girls in the academy. I can help you contact them. Listen, this is human talk. If Lousy had the looks of this guy Air, he would have been single a long time ago, and he would still be like this. With an angry snort, Binz took his new military uniform and left angrily. He didn't want to stay in this miserable place for a moment. Seeing that the troublesome guy was gone, Air immediately became dishonest again. He grabbed Ain's little hand and wanted to do something bad. But Ain didn't give him this chance. After pushing him away, he held his clothes and put on his shoes and planned to leave. It's very late now. I have to go back and rest. Remember to get up early tomorrow. Hey, no, you're leaving now. Shouldn't you be staying? Let's talk about life and the future together, and then you half-heartedly want to spend the night here. She patted the dishonest Air in shame. She smiled, lowered her head and kissed Air on the mouth. She was taller than Air now, touched his head and teased. Little brother, you are still young, wait 2 years before talking about that kind of thing. After saying that, she covered her mouth and left with a smile. Air was so shocked that he sat down on the bed and secretly swore in his heart that in a few years, he would make her look good. See, the door was opened again, and Binz walked in proudly. He glanced at Air on the ground with disdain and said mockingly, "Little brother, you haven't grown up yet, so you should follow the example of adults in picking up girls. Let's wait until you grow up." Binz, who was not far from the door just now, happened to hear Ain's words. Finally, he had the opportunity to laugh at Air, and he would not let it go so easily. Air turned over and jumped up from the ground. It was okay to be by Ain. Now even this guy dares to laugh at himself. Look at my electro-poisonous dragon diamond. Ah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. After playing around for a while, the two fell asleep contentedly. Binz, I didn't. They are full of expectations for the days to come. The next day, jingle bell bell, jingle bell bell. Nasha reluctantly opened her eyes under the gentle call of the alarm clock. He stood up from the bed in a daze and went to the bathroom to wash up. After spending hundreds of millions of hours dressing herself up beautifully, Nasha looked at the time. Oops, the appointed time is coming soon and I'm going to be late. Single quote. She quickly changed her clothes, put on her coat of justice and ran to the meeting point. Ha, fortunately, I'm not late, but why hasn't Air come yet? When they arrived at the agreed place, Nasha took a few breaths and looked at her watch, and said strangely, "Hello, are you Captain Nasha?" A pleasant voice came, and Nasha quickly turned around and followed the sound. I saw a young female Marine, also wearing a coat of justice, coming behind me at some point and looking at me with a smile. Hello, I'm Captain Nasha, who are you?" Nasha asked doubtfully. Having just been promoted to captain, she proudly puffed out her chest when she said this. Ain looked at the girl in front of him who was similar to his own age, gave a respectful military salute, and introduced himself. "Captain Nasha, I am Ain, Lieutenant Junior grade, newly transferred to the G-34 branch. Please give me your advice in the future." "Ah, yes, please give me some advice." Nasha was stunned, and quickly realized that the person in front of her was one of the two newcomers who were informed 2 days ago that she would join the G-34 branch with her. After some more courtesy and small talk, Nasha realized that she and the other newcomer were classmates in the same class of Air. "I just graduated not long ago." While chatting, Ain suddenly asked, "You are Air's adjutant, so after getting along with him during this time, what do you think of him?" Hearing this question, Nasha was a little at a loss at first and looked around. Then he felt relieved and said coyly, "Colonel Air is a very good person, strong and has firm justice in his heart. Although he is usually a little irregular, when he encounters trouble, he can often make calm judgments, appease people and solve problems. Just like my first second-rate." Nasha said a lot, her tone full of adoration and admiration for Air. If Air were here, he would doubt whether the person Nasha was talking about was him. Ain smiled on the surface and agreed with her words, listening to her words and letting out a few compliments from time to time. In fact, alarm bells were ringing in her heart, and she wondered if she should find an opportunity to give Air a serious warning. The two chatted for a while, and after half an hour past the meeting time, Air and Binz blamed each other for being late. As soon as they arrived at the place, they saw that Ain and Nasha had already arrived, and the two disheveled people immediately apologized. "Sorry, we're late. It's all his fault." *2 The two of them pointed at each other and said in unison. Nasha looked at them amusedly, and said in a considerate manner, "It's okay. Now that we're here, Colonel Air, we should set off." Air nodded, straightened his clothes and took the lead onto the warship. During this period, Binz was introduced to Nasha by the way, so that they could get to know each other. On the deck, the soldiers were already lined up neatly, waiting for Air's orders. Air called Deb, the navigator, and asked him, "Did you get the permanent pointer I asked you to prepare?" Deb nodded, took out the small hourglass-shaped thing and said, "I got it. This is what I applied for from the headquarters." Patting him on the shoulder with satisfaction, Air came to the bow and said loudly, "Follow the pointer, guys. Next stop, Gaia Island." "Yes, Captain." Everyone was neatly guarded by Kaido, even Ain and Binns were no exception. Deb directed the soldiers to unload the anchor, raise the sail, and control the warship to set sail again from the port. That's right, Eyre did not plan to return directly to Alabasta this time. Instead, he decided to go directly to Gaia Island, and then board Sky Island to obtain his second ability. This was a decision he made after careful selection. First of all, in terms of abilities, Thunderfruit has amazing destructive power and is only as fast as Sparkling Fruit. Most importantly, Thunderfruit can greatly enhance the range of Esper observation hockey. There was no way, even though he was very covetous of Whitebeard's shock fruit, he still had to have the strength to defeat Whitebeard. On the contrary, Enel, a guy who has never seen the world, only needs Eyre to catch him off guard and not give him a chance to react. The chance of getting Thunderfruit is still very good. So he directly gave up his other abilities and aimed directly at Enel. On this day, Demon Valley Town was as usual. Pirates could be seen wandering everywhere, and from time to time, two groups of pirates would fight over quarrels. The people passing by were not afraid at all. Instead, they cheered and discussed with their friends who would win. At this moment, intensive artillery fire suddenly came from the distant port. At first, people didn't take it seriously, thinking that it was probably another group of pirates fighting. But as the sound of cannons got closer and closer, and at the same time a large number of pirates ran over as if fleeing from the port, everyone realized that something was wrong. A big man grabbed the passers-by who were running by and asked in confusion, "What happened? Why are you running?" The passerby threw away his hand and said with a horrified expression, "Marine is here. It's the recently famous monster colonel, the fire dragon Eyre. Run quickly, or we will all be caught." After saying that, he ran away without looking back. The big man stiffly turned his head to look at his companions. The two looked at each other and quickly followed the fleeing crowd. Eyre leisurely watched Ain and Binns killing everyone in the town, and then glanced at the experience that jumped from time to time. He picked up the wine glass with satisfaction and took a sip. Capitalists don't deceive me, tools are easy to use. It seems that I need to train more powerful subordinates. In this case, I don't need to do anything, and the experience will continue to come. Single quote. Thinking happily, Eyre put down the wine glass, jumped off the boat, and led a group of soldiers to step over the corpses of the garbage and walked into the town. Hey, see, Marine is so afraid. Isn't there even a good person in this town? Eyre glanced at all the closed shops on both sides of the street and complained helplessly. Ain followed him and smiled when he heard his complaints and said, "I heard it just now, they all said you were a monster colonel and gave you the nickname Fire Dragon. After recognizing you, they were all scared away." Eyre stopped, looked up in a certain direction, and said, "Fire Dragon, that's really appropriate, but these trash are not just cowards, there are also a few idiots." As soon as he finished speaking, several pirates jumped up from the roof and slashed at him with long knives. "Fire Dragon Eyre, Lousy has accepted your head. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."